Hey there, welcome to the Literary Escape Podcast. I'm Becky, your host, and I'm glad you're here today. Today I have a fun author interview for you, and our destination is completely different than anything I've done before. I am talking to author Amy S Peele about her medical mysteries. So hang on to your seat and get ready for a fun ride. Hi there.
Well, hello.
Well, welcome to the Literary Escape Podcast. I'm so excited you're here today.
It's a brilliant idea. I listened to a couple of your podcasts, and it's like, yeah, we couldn't go anywhere, but we could go somewhere.
We could, and I have been all around the world in the last year and a half or 2 years, let me tell you.
I know. Thank goodness. And thank goodness for books that take us there.
I know. And it's one of the things that I have done during the last year and a half is start my book club. And it has been so interesting meeting authors. And most people don't know that you can just email an author.
I know. And we love to get emails, and we love to talk to people. So
exactly. And I have had such a good time having authors on the podcast, having them in the book club. And it has been such an eye-opening thing for both myself and I think everybody who's been listening to them. It's been a lot of fun. So yeah. Welcome.
Thank you. I know my destination is a bit different than some of the other.
I look forward to jumping into all that. Yeah.
Yeah, because when I was listening to these wonderful places, Paris, England, when you broke it down by different just destinations.
Yeah.
I thought, well, we'll be taking them somewhere else, won't we?
We will. I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. So, Amy S Peele, how did you get into writing?
Well,
I mean, you have had such a different path, it appears.
I have. My first jump into it was I was in a group with some other folks, and we did The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've heard of that book, but it's kind of excavating your true creativity in nature.
Okay.
And this was 30 years ago, maybe, and writing kept coming up. And even though I'm a registered nurse and a lot of other things, I kept thinking, I'm not a writer. Why does this writing keep coming up? Because if people don't know the book, it tells you real fast, write 10 things that you want to do or whatever. I forget the exercises.
Yeah.
But so that was what my brain was telling me at the time. And then I decided to take a writing class at our community college.
Oh, how cool.
Here I live in Marin County across the Golden Gate Bridge. And so I did, and I had the good fortune to have a wonderful teacher who was kind and generous, because some writing teachers can just rip you apart. And then
that would be so devastating.
Put your tail behind you and then you go. But
yeah.
he was not. Guy Beater.
So nice.
And so anyway, that's how I jumped into writing, and then writing short little pieces because I got the courage. And then I ended up writing short stories. And then I was in his group, and I wrote a first draft murder mystery, but I self-pubbed a memoir in 2009.
I saw that. Yeah.
That was really fun with the help of Brooke Warner, who was my book coach at the time.
Okay.
So it seems like I was willing to take a risk. It's probably the short answer to the long answer I just gave you, to try a creative part of me that I kind of knew was there, but I was working in the world of medicine, and sometimes there's not a lot of room for creativity.
I wouldn't think so. Yeah. I saw that you became a nurse in Chicago.
Yes.
And my mom was a nurse, and she went to school in Chicago a few years before you, but I liked that connection because my mom was probably one of the most compassionate people I had ever known, and to be a nurse, to be a good nurse, you need that.
Oh, yes, you do. You absolutely do.
So and your path, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say your path took you in organ transplant.
Right. I was an RN, worked on a surgical medical floor, but then I started at University of Chicago, and I was on a floor where they did a lot of experimental types of transplants. This is back in the 70s, late 70s.
Okay.
Kidney transplants was one of the types of patients I took care of,
Okay.
and amongst others. And I thought it was kind of cool. Like, wow,
Yeah.
kidney transplants. This is like brand new.
Yeah.
So I was
kind of mind blowing that you can do that. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love those patients anyway. It led me to a transplant coordinator job, which I got to do so many things back there, back at that time.
Yeah.
And I was in an academia medical center where everyone's learning all the time. And you're asking
What a great environment.
Yeah, learned a lot, learned and still am. So that kind of put me in a career that I actually wasn't looking for. I didn't know much about transplant, brain death, organ donation,
Yeah.
but and plus it's a specialty that brings in so many other specialties. So while it's surgery, you also have to figure out how does a kidney transplant work? How come the body rejects some liver, kidneys, hearts, and then organ donation and brain death, and just all the different facets that led off of just, I guess, me following something that I love, not knowing how many doors would open.
Right. And just keep being willing to follow the path as it opens up to you.
And boy, talk about travel. I got to go on a medical delegation to China in 1984.
Wow. Holy moly, how interesting.
Yeah, it was really cool and interesting. And I also was on, I was invited speaker to Holland as transplant coordinator, because in Europe, transplant coordinators were doctors and still are. And in the United States, they're RNs, NPs, PAs or whatever. So, wow. Traveled a fair amount. But yeah, so those kind of things all did culminate in a 35-year career that was amazing.
Had to have been fascinating. Yeah. And I read in your bio that you took some improv classes. Was that before, during, after? How did those fit in?
Well, what happened was I was a single gal living in Chicago, and my day-to-day job was life and death. So I talked to donor families about their, considering their loved ones, donating their loved ones for organs for transplant. And then I also got to call the patient who, hi, we've got a kidney for you. But I also worked with families and ICUs, ERs, managing donors, kind of orchestrated all the events that culminated in organ donation. So pretty heavy, pretty safe.
That is pretty heavy, yeah.
To be in someone's space and an honor, and then the good of calling someone in. But I decided I needed some levity in my life because it was on call. So in Chicago, there's Second City, so they have an improv training called Players Workshop. So every night I would get to go play. I get to exercise my imagination, which, as we all have, but sometimes as we grow up, it's
not exercised a whole lot.
It's not rewarded sometimes unless you're a big old famous comedian. So that was really probably a really good decision, because then I could find some levity and play with our team, not of course in the appropriate times.
Right.
But it was helpful because it needed to be in my toolbox to survive that kind of a career. And
I would think so. Yeah.
So improv to me is just a fun thing to do. And even to this day, I took some more classes when I got out to San Francisco. They have improv classes here. And, I would make fun of the transplant surgeons and in front of them, and they loved it. I mean, obviously not when they were in the OR.
Right.
When we get out, there was lots there to make fun of. And I'm fine if they made fun of me too. But so yeah, I just kind of, I needed that levity, and I love it.
That's my sister and I were caregivers for our mom for several years. She had dementia, and we also found humor to be a necessary part of the package. And it wasn't in any way making fun of her or the situation, but we opened ourselves up to having fun and looking for the lighter moments. And it makes a difference if you're able to do that.
You need it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I retired in 2014 from UCSF as director, we were doing about 600 solid organ transplants, and I had a staff of about 120. And so it was Park Your
That's
Life.
pretty,
yeah, big time.
Pretty heavy, yeah.
But
so then,
interesting and amazing too.
Yeah. Did you start your writing after you retired then? Is that?
No, I did. I started the community college class way before then. The kids were little. I was working, and I just thought, the stories, the age. If anyone goes to a community college creative writing class, it's a hoot because you've got 20, 19-year-olds, you've got 40, 50, and then 80.
Exactly.
The breadth and depth of the people and the stories. It was just like
that had to have been fascinating.
As kids or anywhere, don't you just love someone reading you a story sometimes, or telling you a story, or helping you think way outside the box? I'll never forget this one lady's story. It was a comment. It wasn't actually a story. She goes, they talk about this extra virgin olive oil. Where do they find the virgins? And I thought she had to be she was probably like 75. And I thought, don't you just love this stuff?
To be an extra virgin.
Right. So I took classes, wrote short stories. I was lucky enough to find a writing tribe that I'm still part of today.
That's awesome.
20 some years at least later.
Wow.
And, I think the breadcrumbs kept coming, and I kept doing them when I could.
Yeah.
And then with the mysteries, I had my book coach, Brooke Warner, who has since started a press. She writes press.
Oh, cool.
10 years ago. It's a woman's only press, because she was an acquisition editor for Seal Press and realized that a lot of the women's stories were kind of thrown in the bin.
Mm-hmm.
And she felt like some of them were really great, but they didn't want to publish them. So she's got quite a successful press. So she helped me do with my memoir. And then while I was working, because it was full-time, I could at least scaffold my story, meaning chapter 1, Sarah's point of view, chapter 2, Jackie's, and just put a little bit of information.
Okay. Yeah.
So that when I retired to write the full manuscript,
you had
I had
somewhat of an outline of where you're going. Yeah.
Right. So I just kept my toe in the water, my foot in the water. I went to murder mystery writing classes or conferences.
Wow.
We've got great Corte Madera Book Passage here, which is an amazing independent bookstore. Cool. So there's a lot. And I just, I would go to things and just be in awe of these authors. And yeah. That's
awesome. So how did you kind of land into the murder mystery genre?
I didn't really want to write transplant murder mystery because I lived and breathed it every day. And I don't know if you know the author Michael Conley.
Yeah.
But, so he was speaking here locally, and one of his characters had a heart transplant. Again, long time ago. And, I was kind of like it's Michael Conley. So I said, oh, hi, I like your book. I work in transplant, but I'm not going to write about it. And all he did is say, oh, that's too bad.
Got the wheels going, didn't it?
Little soundbite, the kind of, he planted a seed. I should write him a note.
That would be fun, yeah.
They tell you write what you know, right?
Exactly.
And so I had some short stories and other things, but I thought, okay. So I went to another workshop with my best friend, and she looked at me when we were working. I said, we're working about title ideas and just for fun. And that's when the first cut. And she just looked at me and said, that's the title of your book.
Wow.
And you're right. And so mysteries are fun because it's a whodunit.
Yeah.
And it's pretty, I think most genres are prescriptive in a way about the way that you outline plot.
There's certain rules that you kind of follow-ish. Yeah.
Yes. So I decided I would write my first murder mystery. And I did. And I got a lot of help, because you need a lot of help.
I would think so, yeah.
It's the village approach, as always. Takes a village. And I got a really good developmental editor.
Oh,
which
cool.
was helpful.
Okay.
So the story began. Yeah.
one of my favorite things about getting to talk to authors is to hear their stories, of how they got here as a published author, and the paths are all so different. I love that.
Yes.
And as a person who, if there's people listening that think, oh, I could never be an author because, I don't have any writing experience or whatever. There's so many different ways to get there. And I would think that would be encouraging to say, well, I can do it. I can do it,
Well, you know what? I was one of those people. I thought, I'm an RN. I didn't have an English degree. I wasn't a good speller. Write a book. Seriously.
Yeah.
And when you break it down to small bits and in pieces, if there's something in you that you just feel like you want to say, speak, or write, you're the only person that could ever do that, because it'd be your version of whatever story is that needs to come out. And I would say likely a lot of people would need to hear it, because if it's inside of you, it's kind of knocking, hello, right. I'm in here, let me out. And I think that's true. I think that if people do even have a glimmer of curiosity, and they can just stay home and write on their computer screen and delete it. Nobody has to see it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or they can play with it, or they can
it does you good to just get things out of you in general. I mean, whether you publish them or not, it's not even important, I don't think so.
Yeah, I agree. So I'd say anybody who thinks they want to take a crack at it, have at it.
I think so too. Yeah.
There's no rules. I mean, you can listen to a million rules out there and say, well, you have to have your MFA, you have to have an agent, you have to have this. There's so many successful books that have not ever followed the correct path.
Well, and you don't even have to have a traditional publisher anymore.
Right.
I mean,
right. That's going
beautiful place.
Yeah. By the wayside. I mean, it's out there, but if you're not sure, a big movie star kind of name, you might not get that chance. Who knows?
Agreed. Yeah. That's very cool. So do you consider your books cozy mysteries?
Well, it's good. That's a good question, Becky, because the first book, Cut, it won several awards, including a Cozy Mystery Award. And cozy is supposed to be no swears,
right?
No alcohol, no sex. And my books have that, not gratuitously,
right? But they're in there. Interesting. Okay.
And I was a little surprised because I understood cozy. So I wouldn't, if I get an opinion here, I wouldn't say my books are cozy.
Right. They don't follow the rules.
They're not the rules. But somebody gave me a cozy award, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to give it back. I think it's what I've heard, and I think the short statement on my books are that people who've reviewed them and liked them say they're a mystery with a mission and a side of humor.
There you go.
I take two best friends from nursing school and I put them in situations that in the transplant world they're drawn pretty carefully and accurately.
Okay.
So people will say, one lady said to me, I feel a lot smarter after I read your book. The second one, Match, because I know the real stuff because I lived and breathed the real stuff.
Right.
But I also get to make up a bunch of stuff too. And so that's fun. And I also had a big job where there were some people I didn't really care for at work. And, you have to be professional, so you can't really say what you would like to say. So I've just been killing them off in my murder mysteries.
What a beautiful way to do it.
It's cathartic. It's fiction. I've changed their name.
Of course.
Changed their hair color. You wouldn't know. And I have to say it, my hands never moved so fast on the keyboard when I wrote the second book, because this one person was really something else.
They were pretty right there, huh?
You can't make it up. So I found, and then I also don't want to waste the kill. So I make sure I get to use their organs for transplant.
There you go. Okay.
I mean, I couldn't do, I was in the field too long. I'd feel too guilty if I killed somebody and then just didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't need to waste a good kill. Yeah.
You know it.
Do the murders happen like at the beginning of the book, and then the rest of the book is figuring out the whodunit part of it? Yeah.
Yeah. They say there usually should be a dead body in the first couple chapters. So
yeah.
Or a plot or yeah, I would say absolutely. There's some death going on, different places that you might not expect in the first book, and then the second book, it's pretty right up front in the first chapter.
Okay. So tell me, we kind of touched on this, but tell me where your books are set and how you.
I'm originally from Chicago, so you have to go to Chicago.
Yes.
And my detectives and my characters, my two main protagonists, Jackie Larson and Sarah Golden, are two friends from nursing school, and they went to nursing school in Chicago. So They go to Chicago, they're in Miami. I don't have a big thing about Miami, but my nurse
needed to go there.
Well, my nurse was a traveling nurse, and she was at the Transplant Institute in Miami, so I put her there. You get to go, you get to go to Chicago, Miami, Rodeo Drive. You get to go to Cuba in the third book.
Nice.
So there are geographical places that I sprinkle in, but when I looked at your great podcasts and listened to them, I think the place that I would take, or I take the reader, is behind the curtain in a transplant program.
Exactly. Which who the heck else does that? That's awesome.
And you do see what happens. You do see how they decide to put somebody on a wait list or not, because that's what happens. There's selection meetings. You do get a chance to see how these patients get well or not, where the donor is. And then these two nurses are just ridiculous. They're hysterical. I fashioned them off my one movie I loved called The Heat with Melissa McCarthy and Sandra Bullock came out long ago. But one of my main characters is fashioned after Jackie Larson is Melissa McCarthy. The way I write, because I'm a visual learner, is I cast the characters as if they're going to be in a movie. So I go through all the magazines and pull out, this is Dr. Bauer, here's Sarah, here's Jackie, here's Officer Handsome, here's Biker Bob, here's Zuzu. And I make a pretty storyboard and put it up in my writing room. Actually, it's right there now for the third book. And that way I can just look at them. And if I'm writing, like, what would he do? What would she say? Would she put her hand in her hair? What is he? So it's like helping with the character description when I'm moving the character through the plot in the story.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I like that, because I'm very visual as well. That's a really interesting idea. So do you have to have like the whole outline done?
Well, what I've done, now I'm on the third one in the trilogy, is
this one is called Hold.
You got it. Good homework, Beck. And what's interesting is that the last two books, Hold wasn't going to be the name, and Match was not going to be the name. Match was supposed to be Selection, but the publisher wanted a short word because we had cut. So Match worked okay because it's about kidney transplants, paired exchange, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
The third book was going to be Tolerance, which is an immunological term. It's the holy grail in transplant. If you can get someone to tolerate the organ without a lot of drugs, it's like it's the jam. So the two titles, and we arm wrestle because I love the word. I knew what it meant. I sprinkled it in a variety of ways, but we did get to Hold, and I'm okay with that. And so that's the series of Cut, Match, and Hold. And that's
pretty cool.
Yeah, they do. And the covers we go back and forth on, and there's all those other facets that are kind of the big heavy frosting trimming of the story for when I'm writing it. And one of the other things I do, because I'm in this Thought Leadership Academy with Sarah Cannell, which is lovely. It's a national academy I've been with for a couple of years. While you're writing, or while I'm writing, or while anyone's writing something, if they just don't think they can do it, or we all have our gremlins about whatever in the world, like one saying, yeah, go for it. The other one saying, what do you don't have your master's of da-da-da. You take a copy of the cover, or if you don't have a cover, you just wrap a piece of white paper around a book and write the name of the book that you want it to be, so that there's a visual reminder in front of you at your desk.
And your brain can be like, oh, we did this. Yeah.
It's done. And it's actually, these are tips and tricks. It's not like anyone's going to the nut house anytime soon, but it's helpful to have some evidence so that it kind of moves you along and helps with the process.
Yes, our brain looks for evidence, whether it's for the negative or the positive. So
it will go after whatever
that's right.
So
whatever's easily accessible, it'll prove you right, whichever way.
Yeah, how smart are we, right?
Exactly.
My partner, my friend Betsy and I named our gremlins, the ones who come and say, I don't know. So mine's name is Ursula and her gremlin's name is Dominique. And so when we are having trouble, because we're all writers, and I'm having one of those days where I said, Betsy, Ursula wants to talk to you. She goes, put her on. And, and then Betsy's is Dominique. And so we play with it and make light of it because it's helpful just to, have someone say, okay, wait a minute, where's the evidence?
Exactly.
Published and written 3 books, or on your 4th. So Ursula, you kind of need to take
hit the road, babe. Yeah.
Hit the road.
I like that. That's awesome. Is there going to be a 4th one in the series then?
I'm not planning on it right now. Okay. I have an agent and she would like me to take a crack at a romantic comedy.
Ooh, okay.
So I outlined it during the pandemic and I'm really excited to write it because it's, and I gave myself a 6-month assignment early, a year ago, to watch every rom-com I wanted. And then I could make notes, the beats and what I liked, what I didn't like, why I thought this fell flat. So it was kind of like a real good homework assignment.
Exactly. How fun is that?
It was really fun. But my current editor, I like to write food in my stories. The characters have to eat, Yeah. Some of those, when you watch like Scandal or something on TV, she's just, all she does is drink red wine. Why doesn't that woman eat? Exactly. But so I have my characters eating, and the developmental editor go, Amy, unless one of the characters is going to be a chef at the end of the story, you have to cut out some of the food, because the one time I was writing a scene for the 2nd book and they were waiting at the airport for the recipient to come through on our Learjet, and they were hungry, so they needed a burrito. So I wrote this great scene about a burrito with chorizo and rice and beans. I had to stop and go downtown where I live, get my burrito. So
that's awesome.
I get it. But I did get the chicken cacciatore she pulled out of the 1st book and got it in the 2nd book. Cool. So okay. So the rom-com is going to be about a horrible chef.
Oh, fun. Okay. So you get to talk about food.
Exactly. But her point is you want to keep the reader going, and anytime, stay on point, stay in on the plot. And while it's fun to go off to the left, if you go off to the left too far, the reader might just put the book down and go, I'll see you later. So she's right.
It's true. But
I still like to write about food. Okay. And not in a way like for a newspaper or anything, but I just feel like my characters need a good meal every once in a while.
I'm with you. And we, in the book club, we read a book about chocolates one time. It was a historical fiction, and the lady was a chocolatier, and it described like all the chocolates that she made. And everybody who read it said, I had to go out and get chocolates while I was reading this. That's when you do a good job, and you have to run out and go get your burrito. And
Exactly. Yeah, I know. Oh boy, I would have been eating chocolate the whole time.
I know.
That book should have come with a side of, some fancy chocolate.
She had a recipe in there for I don't even know what they're called, some sort of chocolate thing that you could make, but it was easier to buy it, I have to say.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
So when is your new book coming out?
It will be out October the 4th, 2022.
Oh, that's exciting. Okay.
Yep. And I'm really having a good time with it. It's not done yet.
Oh, okay.
It's in progress as we speak. If you saw my desk, you would know that. If you only see a little corner of my desk, but do know that it's in progress. I mean, I outlined it. You asked what do I do and all that. So I write the scaffolding is what I call it.
Okay.
And it's just like maybe a paragraph or two, like chapter 1, Becky's point of view. She went da 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 da, just a few things. Chapter 2, Sarah's point of view, so I know whose head I'm in when I'm writing. That's helpful. So I do all of that, finish it off, and then I put it to the side. Then I start writing, like Match. I think I wrote the rough drafts of Match and cut during NaNoWriMo, which is a national.
November, yeah.
And just kind of let it go. That's kind of the fun part.
Okay.
And then go back and start really shaping and molding the story from the goods that I created. And sometimes I don't even reference the scaffold. And sometimes things when you show up to write happen that weren't in there. And
I was going to ask about that. Do characters kind of lead you down different paths sometimes that are unexpected?
They do. And like in the second book, Jackie gets on a motorcycle. She's bombed with a Harley Davidson guy who's tatted up to the nines from a biker. I mean, she's going to get on it. I just had to make sure she was safe. Like when she got, but yeah, that's one of the coolest parts of writing, though. You start writing and then something else comes up that wasn't, at least in my awareness. And then, and it just happened again yesterday. So it kind of makes you want to go back for more.
That's so fun. Yeah.
And then as I said, I have worked with my editor and sent her installments, and then, we keep moving forward here. And so that's kind of my process, although everybody has different processes. They say pantser or, plotter.
Yeah.
Well, you have to have somewhat of an idea about the plot.
Yeah.
And I have like my little, tips and tricks I keep, from being and writing for so long. And
so your books kind of go all over. Have you been to all the different places that they have traveled to?
Well, I haven't eaten at some of the places I found out in Miami, but in the first book, I bring them right to my favorite restaurants. I do get to have some restaurant scenes.
Nice.
And people go, I know, I've been to Bill's Burger in San Francisco, or, in Chicago, I take them places. Miami, I didn't know as well, but I did some research.
Okay.
And in the third book, I actually was in Cuba. So the third book starts out in Cuba, in Havana.
Okay.
And thankfully I'd made notes and have a journal, and I read some fun books that take place in Cuba. So there was enough fixins for me to make sure it was authentic, because the reader does, if they don't get to travel, then I want to make sure that they do get to, because I did get notes from readers that said, is this really a real restaurant? Because I would like to go there.
That's awesome. I like that.
I'm not making up any restaurants, at least. And physically, I would say, I mean, I've been to Miami, but I'm more a Chicago girl and San Francisco girl. So that I try to make sure, sprinkle a little authenticity in there.
So where's your rom-com going to be, or have you figured that out yet?
Oh, it's in Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah, the working title right now is called City Hall.
Okay.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's so fun. It's just going to be silly and fun.
That's the thing that you get to do with rom-coms, is you get to have fun, and you're expected to have silly things in there. And
so it's all gonna, because I lived in Chicago 31 years before I moved out to the West Coast. So I know my town, and
Chicago's a good city. Yeah,
it's a great city. It's just a great city. So the rom-com will take place in Chicago.
Okay, fun. Look forward to that one too. Any projections on dates for that one, or is it too soon for that?
Too soon, because I'm really wrapping up the third.
Okay.
I want to get all my attention, but the whole thing's outlined. The rom-com is all outlined. The characters, I already got their pictures.
Just waiting for your timing, huh? Good stuff. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really, really enjoyed chatting with you.
Oh, Becky, it was fun to talk to you too. And I am doing a little contest on my website, because I did Cut Around the World, and it went everywhere in the United States except one state, and then all over the different countries. So people who bought the book also would take a picture of it where they were. So Match is going around the world.
Nice.
And I just got Barcelona, Texas, Honduras, Washington. I mean, it's moving along, but when people buy the book and show something from where they live, my husband does fused glass, so they get a fused glass necklace.
Oh, cool.
So it's on my website if your listeners at amyspeel.com.
Okay.
And
I'll
it's
put that in the
fun.
show notes as well so that they can link to it.
Yeah, and it's actually been fun to meet new people and Match during my book with Match came out during the pandemic, which was kind of sad because you like to engage with
it makes it very challenging. Yeah.
So I was able to go virtually to NYU and University of Wisconsin and all the different universities because I was in transplant. And so it did make it out to different. My book travels more than I do. And that's probably, that's okay because it's cheaper.
Exactly. Yeah. And right now it's safer. So
no kidding. But anyway, so yeah, it was fun to talk to you. It's just, it's fun to talk about writing and characters and take people places that they haven't been before.
Exactly.
Thanks for joining me today on the Literary Escapes podcast. This episode was a clip of the interview I did in my membership book club, the Literary Escape Society. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to join the full interviews live, come check out the Literary Escape Society. We're a community of travelers who love books, or maybe book lovers who love to travel. Either way, if you need an escape, a literary escape, come join us as we read our way around the world together, one book at a time. Check out the show notes to learn more about the Literary Escape Society. And we'll see you next time on the next episode.